If you go back to January of this year, at the height of the unrest in the streets of Iran, the president of the United States was saying, stand strong, help is on the way. And everybody was expecting an attack. You remember clearing the airspace, all that. But what happened is the American military turned to the president and said, boss, we can't do this. We don't have sufficient resources in play to get the impact that you want. The consequence will be that Iran will destroy Israel. And that's why the Israelis made the phone call and said, stop. The other consequence was that Saudi Arabian oil fields could be devastated. So the Saudis made the phone call and said, stop. And so the president stopped. The other thing that he was told is that we don't have the ability to defend ourselves. So if Iran decided to take out American bases in the region, we'd be exposed. And so that attack didn't take place. But then the United States did what it always does. It says we're ready to engage with the Iranians on negotiations. Why? Well, because we needed to do two things. One, we needed to reset the internal dynamics that we were trying to achieve inside Iran. We had played a card, and we needed to pull that card back. We needed to reset the deck. I call this a Starlink factor. I'm going to try and publish a paper on it, but I have to find the time to finish the paper. But, we talk about Starlink and the importance of Starlink. But what are we speaking of? Go back to 2005, 2006. There's a name that might be familiar to you, Jared Cohen. Jared Cohen was a guy who traveled the Middle East and wrote a book. I can't remember the title of the book right now, but basically it promoted the notion that all Middle Eastern youth are like the West and they want to be like the West. And all we have to do to win them over away from the Islamic, the evil of Islamism is to expose them to the West. And so we need to create digital interconnectivity. He then was hired by the State Department to promote what was called digital democracy. And digital democracy was about, for instance, traveling to Syria and trying to get the Syrian government to open up, the internet to Google. Later on, he went to work for Google doing something similar. But he's the guy. If you remember, during the 2009 Green Revolution, he's the guy that called Twitter and asked Jack Dorsey not to shut Twitter down for maintenance because the United States government needed Twitter to remain open for connectivity with the Iranian opposition groups. That's digital democracy, using the internet connectivity as a vehicle to not just influence people inside a closed area, but to allow them to project their reality. We saw this in Syria, the whole human rights coordination committees were the people that that followed the demonstrations, waiting for something to happen, a clash, and then they filmed it and broadcast it out. The Syrian government is slaughtering Syrian civilians in the streets. No, your video shows a limited interaction with no context, but they would broadcast it out, get picked up. They used a similar connectivity to promote the ideas of the Syrian government using chemical weapons, etc. This is digital democracy. It's a tool of subversion. And with Iran went around and took control of its internet. And so we had to find a way around Iran's ability to hit the kill switch, and Starlink was that ability. And we saw the importance of Starlink, with the State Department acknowledging that they surged 7,000 additional Starlink terminals into Iran after the January thing to restore internet connectivity to groups of people. But what we now know is that over 100,000 Starlink terminals have been sent into Iran. Over 100,000. The Iranians have rounded up hundreds, if not a few thousand. Let's say that Iran got 20,000. That's 80,000 terminals that are there. We know that the Israelis have provided, the Mossad have provided special packets that convert Starlink from its traditional single bandwidth to frequency hopping, mimicking military style communications. so it's impossible to track and jam, etc. Why? Because we are infecting the minds of as many Iranians as possible with anti-regime logic, hybrid warfare, mental warfare, causing clash with them, and creating the potential for them to project imagery outside that influences the world. For instance, you remember the hysteria. They're gunning down hundreds of thousands of Iranians. Well, it was 3,000, and most of them were killed by the bad guys. But it doesn't matter. They create this perception. Well, we have to reset that, and it's not that we have to get things. That we just have to reset the conditions so that when we call upon these 80,000 to rise up and burn the cities of Iran, that we're able to back them up twofold. One, with military campaign to suppress Iran's regime ability to suppress their abilities, and two, to empower those players that didn't get mobilized. Where was the Baluch Liberation Army during the January Revolution? Nowhere. Where was Pijak? Nowhere. Where's the Mujahideen al-Khalq? Nowhere. All these armed factions that exist, they never went to the streets. Why? Because they were supposed to go to the streets once we started bombing. Then they would rise up and make the military move to bring down the regime once we suppressed. But we had to reset. We didn't have sufficient power to achieve that objective. But now, to bring that power into play, we're moving them, as you said, we're moving a lot of targets into a region that makes them vulnerable. So what we needed to do is create a window of invulnerability. That's what the diplomacy was about. We engage in diplomacy. We meet with the Iranians in Geneva. We reach a good deal. I mean, the Iranians are, hey, this is good progress. The United States is talking about a framework. Well, J.D. Vance closed the door on that. He said, there's no framework. The president's drawn a red line, and the Iranians aren't going to meet that red line, which means what it means. At least he was honest. But the Iranians are under the perception that they have 2 weeks to go, create something, and then return to diplomacy. When they come back, if they are ever allowed to come back, what they'll find is that the United States has already forward deployed a ballistic missile defense shield that we feel will be sufficient to degrade Iran's ballistic missile response, while projecting military power that's capable of suppressing Iran's ballistic missile strike capability and suppressing the defense forces.